Welcome to Today English Podcast, and today we begin a gentle and exciting journey into one of the most important skills in life, the skill of communication, the way we speak, the way we listen, the way we understand each other, and the way we express our true selves. So, I want you to sit back, breathe slowly, relax your shoulders, and listen to this story as if you are walking with me through a calm morning where every sound is soft, every moment is clear, and every word is easy to feel. Because today, we are not just learning English, we are learning how to communicate better, how to connect better, how to understand and be understood. And our story begins with a young man named Leo, a quiet man, a careful thinker, a person who always wanted to speak well, but often felt nervous, worried, or unsure. He lived in a small, busy city where the streets were full of voices, but he often felt like his own voice was too small to be heard, or too slow, or not good enough. Maybe you have felt that way too. Maybe in your own language or in English, you have had moments where you wanted to speak, but something inside you held you back. If you have ever felt that, then you will understand Leo very well, because his story is also our story today. One cool morning, Leo stood in front of a small cafe window. Inside, people were talking, laughing, ordering coffee, asking questions, answering questions, making eye contact, nodding, smiling, connecting. Leo watched them and wondered, how do they do it so easily? How do they speak without fear? How do they always find the right words? He placed his hand on his chest and felt his heart beat a little faster because he remembered a moment from the past, a moment when he tried to say something important, but his voice shook, his words broke, and his message disappeared. That memory stayed with him for years like a small shadow that always followed him. He told himself many times, "I'm just not good at communication," and that sentence became a wall inside him. But today, something different was about to happen, even if he did not know it yet. As he opened the door of the cafe and walked inside, he felt the warm air touch his face, carrying the smell of fresh bread and slow music. He found an empty seat near the window, sat down, and ordered a simple tea. While waiting, he heard a gentle voice from behind him. "Excuse me," the voice said. Leo turned and saw an older woman with kind eyes, soft gray hair, and a warm smile. "Is this seat taken?" she asked. Leo shook his head and said softly, "No, you can sit here." The woman sat down with a small notebook in her hand. She placed it on the table, looked at Leo for a moment, and asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" Leo hesitated, then said, "No, not really." He expected the conversation to stop there, but the woman continued, "You looked like you were thinking deeply. Big thoughts, perhaps?" Leo almost laughed, because yes, he had been thinking deeply, but he never expected a stranger to notice. He replied shyly, "Maybe, yes." The woman nodded slowly, almost as if she understood exactly what was inside his mind. "You know," she said gently, "many people walk around with big thoughts, but only a few try to understand them or share them with others. Communication starts with noticing what is happening inside you." Leo blinked. Her sentence felt simple, but it touched something in him. Communication starts inside, not outside? He had never thought about it that way. He always believed communication was about speaking perfectly, choosing the perfect words, sounding confident. But the woman's words were different, clear, calm, real. She continued, "Most people think communication means talking more, but actually, communication means connecting more. And connection begins with awareness, not with many words." Leo listened carefully. Her voice was soft, slow, and easy to understand, almost like a story told by a grandmother on a quiet night. Something about her made him want to listen more. Finally, he asked, "Do you teach communication?" The woman smiled with her eyes. "In a way," she answered. "I help people see what they already have inside." Because good communication is not something you buy, not something you borrow, not something you copy. It is something you grow slowly from your own life. Leo felt curious now. How do you grow it? He asked. The woman flipped open her small notebook. Inside, the pages were filled with tiny notes, simple sentences, small drawings, and little reflections. She tapped one page lightly and said, "We grow communication by practicing awareness, patience, and presence. Before you speak well, you listen well. Before you answer well, you understand well. Before you express yourself, you connect with yourself." Leo leaned closer, trying to read the notes on the page, but the words were written in small handwriting. The woman noticed and gently turned the notebook so he could see. On the page, a simple sentence stood alone. Communication is not speaking. Communication is seeing. Leo whispered, "Seeing what?" The woman smiled again. "Seeing the moment. Seeing the person in front of you. Seeing your own feelings. Seeing what truly matters. When you can see clearly, the right words come naturally. When you cannot see, even the perfect words feel wrong." Leo stayed silent, letting the idea move through him like slow wind. He had never thought of communication as a way of seeing. He had never considered that maybe his problem was not a lack of words, but a lack of calmness, a lack of inner space. The woman sipped her tea and continued, "When people struggle to communicate, they think the problem is language. But many times, the real problem is fear of judgment, fear of mistakes, fear of being misunderstood. But fear makes the mind heavy, and a heavy mind cannot communicate with light, simple words." Leo looked down at his hands. Yes, that was exactly how he felt. Heavy, slow, afraid. And because he felt this way, his words often became small, weak, or broken. The woman watched him kindly and said, "Let me tell you a story. Years ago, there was a young girl who wanted to be a singer. But every time she stood on stage, her voice shook. One day, her teacher said, 'You are not singing with your voice. You are singing with your fear.' The girl didn't understand. But later, she learned something important. When she relaxed, when she breathed, when she trusted herself, her voice finally sang the song the way it was meant to be sung." The woman paused and added softly, "Communication is the same. You cannot communicate with fear. You communicate with presence." Leo took a slow breath. Presence. That word felt peaceful. "How do you get presence?" he asked. The woman closed her notebook and answered, "By slowing down. By listening more. By breathing before speaking. By learning to observe before reacting. And by understanding that communication is not a competition. It is a meeting. A meeting between two human beings." Leo thought about all the times he tried to speak quickly, to sound smart, to avoid mistakes, to impress people. Maybe communication did not need any of that. Maybe communication needed something much simpler. Finally, Leo asked, "Why are you telling me all this?" The woman laughed softly and said, "Because you asked. And because you listened. And when someone listens, truly listens, it feels natural to share." Leo felt a warm feeling inside. It was the feeling of connection, the feeling of being seen without judgment. He realized that this simple conversation in a small cafe was teaching him more about communication than any book or class he had ever taken. The woman finished her tea and stood up slowly. "I must go now," she said. "But before I leave, I want to tell you one thing. Communication is not about having a big voice. It is about having a true voice. And your true voice is already inside you. You just need to give it space." She wrote something in her notebook, tore out the small page, and handed it to him. "Read this later," she said with a warm smile. Then, she walked toward the door and disappeared into the busy street outside. Leo stayed still for a moment, feeling the quiet music in the background and the warm cup of tea in front of him. He slowly opened the small piece of paper. On it, the woman had written just one sentence: "When you speak from fear, you hide. When you speak from presence, you shine." Leo read it again and again. The words felt simple, but they entered his heart like light entering a dark room. Maybe, he thought, communication was not a big mystery. Maybe it was a gentle practice. A daily practice. He looked out the window and watched people passing by. Some walked quickly, some slowly, some talked loudly, some quietly. And for the first time, Leo did not feel outside of the world. He felt inside it. He felt connected. He thought about the woman's words: "Before you speak well, you listen well." So he began listening, not just to sounds, but to the world, to the moment, to himself. And as he listened, the noise inside his mind became softer. He whispered to himself, "I can learn. I can grow. I can communicate better." And in that moment, something changed inside him. A small shift. A small opening. A small light. And every big change begins with a small one. This was the first step of his journey. And this is the first step of yours. As you listen to this story, as you hear the slow rhythm of the words, you are not just studying English. You are practicing presence, patience, and awareness. You are learning to listen deeply. You are learning to understand more than just language. You are learning to understand communication itself. And that is the foundation of every conversation you will ever have. So take a breath. Let your mind relax. And remember, you are already on the path. You are already learning. You are already becoming a better communicator, slowly, gently, naturally. This is the end of section 1 of today's English podcast, but it is only the beginning of the journey. When you are ready, we will continue to section 2, where Leo discovers new lessons, new challenges, and deeper truths about what it really means to communicate with confidence, clarity, and heart. As we continue this long and peaceful journey, I want you to relax again, breathe slowly, and listen as if this moment is the only moment that exists. Let the words flow around you softly, like warm morning light. Our story continues one day after Leo's meeting with the woman. That night, after he left the cafe, he walked home with a calm feeling in his chest. The city lights looked softer, the sounds of traffic felt quieter, and even the cool air felt more gentle on his skin. He kept thinking about her words: "Before you speak well, you listen well," and the sentence she wrote for him: "When you speak from fear, you hide. When you speak from presence, you shine." Leo placed the paper on his desk when he got home, and he looked at it again in the morning. Something about those words made him feel lighter, as if he had permission to slow down, permission to breathe, permission to be himself. And on this new day, he wanted to try something. He wanted to practice listening the way the woman described. Leo began his day by walking to the park near his apartment. It was early, and the sun was still low, painting the sky with pale orange colors. People were jogging, walking their dogs, stretching, or sitting quietly on benches. Leo found an empty bench near a large tree and sat down. He closed his eyes for a moment and tried to listen, not to words, not to conversations, but to the world. He heard the gentle rustling of leaves, the slow steps of an old man passing by, the soft breathing of a dog lying on the grass, the distant hum of cars on a road far away. Normally, these sounds would feel like noise, but today, they felt like music. He felt himself slowing down inside. He felt his thoughts becoming softer. He whispered, "This is presence." After a few minutes, he opened his eyes. The world looked clearer, as if someone had cleaned the lens through which he normally saw life. He thought again about communication. Could it really be this simple? Could listening to the world help him speak better? The idea felt strange, but also true. As he sat there, a young mother walked by with her little daughter. The girl held a small red balloon and was talking in a happy voice about something that only young children can describe with such excitement. "Mommy, look, a big tree. And look, a bird. And look, a dog." The mother listened patiently, nodding and smiling, even though the girl spoke fast and jumped from idea to idea. Leo observed them quietly. The girl communicated with joy. The mother communicated with attention. It was simple. It was natural. It was human. Leo realized something important in that moment. Communication does not require perfection. It requires presence. And presence begins with listening. He stayed in the park a little longer, watching people interact. A couple sitting under the tree was having a calm conversation. A group of teenagers laughed loudly as they tried to take a picture together. A man with headphones walked by, lost in his own world, but still smiling softly. Leo noticed something new. Every person in the park was communicating in some way, not only through words, but through body language, facial expressions, tone, silence, movement. Communication was not happening only with the mouth. It was happening with the whole self. And suddenly, Leo felt something open in his mind. Maybe communication was not about choosing the perfect sentence. Maybe it was about connecting with the moment, connecting with the person, connecting with your own feelings. As he stood up to leave, he heard someone call out, "Excuse me." Leo turned around and saw an older man sitting on a bench nearby. The man smiled and pointed at a book lying on the ground. "Is this yours?" he asked. Leo shook his head and said, "No, it's not mine." The man nodded and said, "Ah, I see. I'm trying to find the owner. Someone must have dropped it." Leo took a step closer, looked at the book, and said softly, "I hope they come back for it." The man smiled again, a warm and grateful smile. "Thank you," he said, though Leo was not sure what he was being thanked for. Maybe for paying attention. Maybe for responding calmly. Maybe just for being present. Leo walked away thinking about how simple that exchange was, just a few words, but it felt pleasant and easy. Why? Because there was no fear. There was no pressure. There was only awareness. As he left the park, Leo decided something important. He would spend the whole day practicing listening, not just hearing, but listening with intention, listening with heart. So throughout the morning, he tried to notice things he normally ignored: the tone of people's voices, the rhythm of conversations on the street, the way people paused before answering, the way they looked at each other, the little emotions in their faces. And something began to change inside him. The world felt more alive. The world felt more open. And he felt less afraid. When he reached his workplace, a small design studio where Leo worked quietly at a desk near the window, he tried something new. Instead of avoiding conversations as he often did, he listened more closely. His coworker Emma greeted him with a cheerful, "Good morning, Leo." Normally, he would respond quickly, quietly, and end the conversation. But today he paused, looked at her face, and listened to her tone. She sounded fresh, energetic, and friendly. He let himself feel that energy before answering. Then he said, "Good morning, Emma," in a warm and slow voice. It felt natural. And Emma smiled, a bigger smile than usual, as if she felt the difference. After a moment, she asked him, "Did you see the new project?" "Email?" Leo nodded. "Yes, I saw it this morning." Emma leaned on his desk and said, "I think it will be fun. Maybe challenging, but interesting." Leo listened again, not just to the words, but to the feeling behind them. And he responded, "Yes, I think so too. I like new challenges." Emma raised her eyebrows slightly, surprised. It was the longest sentence Leo had said to her in weeks. But it didn't feel uncomfortable. It didn't feel forced. It felt simple. Because he wasn't speaking from fear. He was speaking from presence. And presence changed everything. Later that day, during lunch, Leo sat with two coworkers, which he normally avoided because group conversations made him nervous. But today, he wanted to practice listening. The two coworkers talked about weekend plans, and Leo listened quietly, without pressure to join, without fear of mistakes. He just observed the flow of conversation. He noticed when they paused, when they laughed, when they made eye contact. Something wonderful happened. For the first time, he understood something about communication that he had never seen before. Communication was not a race. It was a dance. A gentle dance between speaking and listening. And listening was just as important as speaking. Suddenly, one of them asked, "What about you, Leo? Any plans this weekend?" Normally, this question would make Leo panic, but today he breathed, relaxed his shoulders, listened to the question deeply, and answered slowly, "I might visit the park again. I like quiet places." The coworkers nodded and smiled. "That sounds nice," one of them said sincerely. That was it. A simple exchange. No pressure. No fear. Just presence. When Leo walked home after work, he felt proud of himself. Not because he said something impressive, but because he stayed calm, stayed aware, stayed connected. He thought about everything the woman in the cafe taught him. She showed him that communication is not about talking more. It is about noticing more. He whispered to himself, "I am learning to listen." And as he said that, he realized something new. Listening was beginning to change the way he felt about himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt confident, not loud confidence, not showy confidence, but quiet confidence. A confidence that grows from inside, like a small seed slowly becoming a plant. When he arrived home, the sky was turning dark. He entered his apartment, made a cup of tea, and sat at his small table. He took the little paper from his pocket, the one the woman gave him. He placed it in front of him and read it again. "When you speak from fear, you hide. When you speak from presence, you shine." He closed his eyes and let the words rest inside him. Then he opened them and wrote something new on his own notebook. "Today I learned to listen with my heart." He looked at the sentence for a long time. It felt true. It felt like the beginning of something bigger. As he finished his tea, he remembered something the woman said. Good communication is not something you copy. It is something you grow. And today he felt that growth. Not a big change. Not a sudden transformation. But a small, gentle step. A step taken with awareness. A step taken with presence. And that was enough. Leo felt the quiet joy of progress, the joy of learning something real, something deep, something human. And before he went to sleep, he whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I will listen again." This is the end of section 2 of Today English podcast. You are doing exactly what Leo is doing, learning to listen, learning to understand, learning to communicate not just with words, but with presence. When you are ready, we will continue to section 3, where Leo faces a new challenge, one that will test everything he has learned about communication, confidence, and connection. So again, relax your shoulders, take a soft breath, and listen slowly, peacefully, as if you are walking beside Leo on a quiet road where each sound is clear, each moment is calm, and each word is meant for you. On the third day after meeting the woman in the cafe, Leo woke up feeling a quiet confidence inside him, a confidence he had not felt in years. The sky was cloudy, the morning light dim, but inside him there was a little brightness because he knew he was growing. He walked into the kitchen, made a warm cup of tea, and opened his notebook. On one page, he wrote, "Today, I will try to speak without fear." He looked at the sentence, smiled softly, and closed the book. He knew it would be difficult, but he wanted to try. He wanted to continue the journey he started in the cafe. And he wanted to see if he could communicate with both presence and courage. When he arrived at work, he felt a little nervous. The office felt busier than usual, and there was something different in the air. People were walking fast, talking fast, moving quickly between desks. Leo felt the old fear rise inside him like a quiet shadow, the fear that made his chest tight and his voice small. But he remembered the woman's words, "Before you answer, breathe." So he breathed. Slowly, gently, and his mind became a little calmer. A moment later, Leo's manager, Mr. Thomas, called out, "Leo, can I see you for a minute?" Normally, when the manager asked for him, Leo's stomach would twist into a knot. But today, he reminded himself, presence, not fear. He walked into the manager's office, took a slow breath, and stood still. Mr. Thomas looked at him with a serious but calm expression. "Leo," he began, "we have a problem with the new project. The client wants changes. Big changes. And we need everyone to help." Leo nodded. He felt tension, but he stayed quiet and listened. "This afternoon," the manager continued, "we're having a team meeting. I want you to be there, and I want you to share your ideas about the design." Leo froze. Ideas? Speak? In a meeting? In front of everyone? His chest tightened again. For a moment, the fear felt stronger than anything else. All the old doubts returned. "I'm not good at speaking. I will make mistakes. My voice will shake. People will judge me." But then he felt something else too, something small and true. A memory of sitting in the park listening to the world. A memory of speaking calmly to his coworkers. A memory of the woman's gentle smile. He breathed again and finally answered softly, "Okay. I will be there." The rest of the morning passed slowly. Leo tried to focus on work, but his mind kept returning to the meeting. The fear was growing again, like a cloud covering the sun. But instead of running from the fear, he tried something new. He listened to it. He sat with it. He asked himself, "What am I afraid of?" And as he asked this question, the fear slowly changed shape. It became a feeling he could describe, a feeling he could understand. He was afraid of being misunderstood. He was afraid of looking foolish. He was afraid of not being enough. When he saw the fear clearly, he felt something surprising relief. Because the moment he named the fear, it stopped being a big monster. It became a small, simple feeling inside him. And simple feelings can be understood. They can be handled. They can be softened. At lunch, Leo sat with Emma and a few other coworkers again. They talked about small things: food, weather, daily habits. Leo listened deeply, and sometimes he added a few words here and there. "I like that restaurant," he said when Emma mentioned one. "The weather feels heavy today," he said when someone complained about the clouds. They were small sentences, yes, but they were spoken with presence, not fear. And something amazing happened. Every time he spoke, people listened. They looked at him. They nodded. They responded to him with warmth. This made him feel stronger. It made him feel more grounded. It made him feel ready, maybe not fully ready, but ready enough. Finally, the afternoon arrived. The meeting time. Leo walked into the conference room slowly. The room was bright, with large windows showing the gray sky outside. People sat around a long table, talking softly. Leo found a chair near the end of the table and sat down. His heart was beating fast now, but his breathing stayed slow. That was the new Leo, the Leo who listened even to his own heartbeat without fear. When the manager entered the room, everyone became quiet. "Thank you for coming," Mr. Thomas said. "We have important work to do. The client wants stronger visual ideas. So we're going to share concepts." Leo felt a little cold in his hands. He rubbed them gently under the table. One by one, People began sharing ideas, confident voices, quick voices, loud voices. Leo listened. He watched. He stayed present. But inside, his fear began to grow again. When would his turn come? Would he forget what he wanted to say? Would his voice shake? And then, suddenly, the manager said, "Leo, what about you?" The room fell quiet. Everyone turned their eyes toward him. Leo felt a wave of heat move up his neck. For a moment, everything inside him tried to run. But he did not run. He breathed. He remembered the woman's voice. "You communicate with presence." He looked at the design on the table and said, slowly, gently, with simple English, "I think maybe the design needs more space. More quiet space. It feels too crowded right now." The room stayed silent for a moment. Leo felt nervous. But then someone nodded. Another person said, "Yes, maybe that's true." The manager said softly, "Can you explain more, Leo?" Leo breathed again, looked at the design, and continued, "When I look at it, my eyes move too fast. If we give the design more space, people can feel more calm, more clear, more focused." This time, more people nodded. Someone said, "That's a good point." Another added, "It would make the message stronger." Leo felt a warm feeling spreading through his chest. People were listening. They understood him. His simple words created connection. His slow voice created meaning. The meeting continued, and Leo felt more relaxed as time passed. He didn't speak much, but he spoke enough. And every time he spoke with presence. When the meeting ended, the manager came to him and said, "Good job, Leo. Thank you for sharing." Leo felt his heart shine a little. It was one of the first times someone had ever thanked him for speaking. And in that moment, he understood something new, something deep. Communication is not about being the loudest person in the room. It is about being true, being clear, being present. That is enough. More than enough. That is real communication. On his way home, the sky began to rain softly. Leo walked under the gentle rain with a quiet smile. He looked at the wet streets, the falling drops, the reflections of city lights in puddles. Everything felt calm. Everything felt real. That night, when he arrived home, he sat down at his table again and opened his notebook. He wrote, "Today, communication was difficult. But I did not run. I stayed. I breathed. I spoke. And I learned that fear is not the enemy. Fear is the teacher." He looked at the sentence for a long moment. And the more he looked at it, the more he felt it was true. Fear teaches us where we need to grow. Fear shows us the places inside us that need more light, more care, more presence. And today, Leo didn't let fear control him. He listened to it. He spoke anyway. And, because of that, he grew. Before he went to bed, Leo thought about the woman in the cafe. He wondered where she was now, what she was doing. He wanted to thank her for the wisdom she gave him. But he also understood something. Her lesson was not just for one moment. It was for his whole life. She gave him a seed. And now it was his job to grow it. Slowly, gently, day by day. As he lay down in bed, he breathed softly and whispered into the quiet room, "I am learning to communicate. I am learning to be present. I am learning to be brave." And so his journey continued, step by step. And your journey continues too. As you listen to this story, as you hear these simple words, you are learning the same lesson Leo is learning. Communication takes courage. Communication takes patience. Communication takes presence. But with each moment you listen, with each breath you take, you are growing. You are learning to understand English more deeply. You are learning to speak with more ease. You are learning to connect, not just with language, but with yourself. This is the end of Section 3 of Today English podcast. When you are ready, we will continue to Section 4, where Leo meets someone unexpected who changes the direction of his journey and teaches him a powerful truth about connection, honesty, and the beauty of real communication and emotional connection. So again, relax your shoulders, breathe slowly, and listen as if this story is happening right now, right beside you, in a warm and quiet world. The day after the big meeting at his workplace, Leo woke up with a soft confidence inside his heart. He knew he had done something brave, something he didn't think he could do. He had spoken in front of people. He had shared an idea. And people listened. This gave him a new sense of strength, like a small flame inside him that finally had room to grow. But life always brings new lessons, new challenges, and new moments when we must face ourselves again. And that morning, as Leo walked to work, he noticed something unusual. The air felt heavier than usual, the sky darker, and the streets quieter. He wondered why. He wondered what the day would bring. He did not know yet that this day would teach him one of the most important lessons of his life. When Leo arrived at work, he found his coworker Emma sitting at her desk, staring at her computer with a tired expression. Normally, Emma was cheerful and full of energy, but today something was different. Her shoulders were low, her eyes looked sad, and her usual smile was missing. Leo noticed this immediately. And in the past, he might have ignored it, not because he didn't care, but because he never knew what to say. But today, something had changed in him. He had been practicing presence. He had been practicing listening. And part of communication is noticing the feelings of others, not just their words. So he walked slowly to her desk and said softly, "Good morning, Emma." Emma looked up, forced a small smile, and said, "Good morning, Leo." But her voice had no energy. It sounded thin, tired, almost like she was holding something inside. Leo felt a small moment of hesitation. Should he ask her if she was okay? Should he stay silent? In the past, he would stay silent. But today, he took a small breath, listened to his own heart, and said gently, "You seem different today. Is everything okay?" Emma looked surprised. Her eyes widened just a little, as if she didn't expect someone to notice. She looked away for a moment, then back at Leo. "I'm fine," she said quickly. But her voice didn't match her words. Leo felt a soft feeling inside him, something new, empathy. He understood what the woman from the cafe meant when she said communication is seeing. He could see that Emma wasn't okay, even though she said she was. He didn't want to push her, but he didn't want to ignore her either. So he said something simple, something honest, "If you want to talk, I can listen." Emma blinked. For a moment, she looked like she might cry, but she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you. Maybe later." The morning passed quietly. Leo worked at his desk, but his mind stayed aware of Emma. She moved slowly, typed slowly, and kept rubbing her hands together like someone feeling cold inside. Around lunchtime, she walked to the company kitchen, and Leo followed, not too close, not too fast, just enough to be present. He found her standing near the window, looking outside at the gray sky. She didn't turn around when he entered, but he felt she knew he was there. After a moment of silence, she said softly, "It's been a hard morning." Leo nodded, even though she wasn't looking at him. He didn't speak yet. He waited. He gave her space. Then she turned and looked at him, her eyes holding a quiet sadness. "My grandmother is sick," she said. "She's in the hospital." The words came slowly, like heavy drops of rain. Leo felt the emotion in her voice. He knew this was not a moment for big words. This was a moment for gentle presence. So he said softly, "I'm sorry, Emma." That must be very hard. Emma nodded. She looked down at her hands, then back at Leo. I didn't want to tell anyone, she said. I didn't want to bring sadness to the office. But it hurts. And I'm trying to stay strong. Leo took a slow breath. He could feel the weight of her sadness. And something inside him told him the truth. Communication is not only about speaking clearly or listening carefully. It is also about sharing feelings honestly. So he said, you don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to feel sad. Emma's eyes softened. A tear rolled down her cheek. And Leo stood beside her, not afraid, not uncomfortable, just there, present, simple, real. After a few moments, Emma wiped her tears and said, thank you for listening. Sometimes that's all I need. Someone to listen. Leo nodded. He felt a warm, gentle feeling in his chest. This moment was different from the meeting. It wasn't about ideas or work. It wasn't about fear. It was about connection. True human connection. And he realized something. Communication is not only about speaking your truth. It is about creating a safe space where others can speak their truth too. As they walked back to the office, Emma looked more relaxed. Her shoulders were higher, her eyes calmer. She even smiled, not a big smile, but a real one. And she said quietly, you're a good communicator, Leo. Leo almost laughed. A good communicator? Him? The man who used to shake every time someone asked him a question? The man who avoided conversations because of fear? But he didn't laugh. Instead, he said calmly, I'm learning. And Emma nodded, we all are. Her words felt warm. Leo worked through the afternoon with a quiet heart. He wasn't thinking about perfect English or perfect sentences. He was thinking about connection, about what it means to truly be there for someone. And that idea stayed with him until the end of the day. When work finished, he packed his things slowly. As he walked out of the building, he saw Emma again. She was talking on the phone, her voice soft. When she ended the call, she smiled at Leo and said, my grandmother is feeling better this afternoon. The doctors said it's a good sign. Leo smiled too. I'm glad, he said simply. Really glad. Emma nodded. Thank you again for listening. Leo felt a warm feeling inside him. He realized something powerful. Sometimes, the best communication happens when you say very little, but you give very much. Presence, attention, kindness. Those things speak louder than words. As Leo walked home, he felt something new inside him, something deep and important. Communication is emotional understanding. When you listen with your heart, not just your ears, you understand more than words. You understand the person. You understand the feeling. You understand the moment. And that is true communication. When he arrived home, he sat at his small table again, opened his notebook, and wrote another sentence. Today, I learned that communication is kindness. He paused, thinking deeply. Then he added, and kindness is understanding. He closed his notebook and looked out the window. The sky was still cloudy, but it didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt peaceful, calm, quiet, like his heart. Leo realized that he didn't just learn a lesson today. He lived a lesson. He didn't practice English or speaking today. He practiced humanity. And that is the heart of communication. Before going to bed, he whispered to himself, I want to be someone who listens. Someone who understands. Someone who connects. And as he fell asleep, he felt the gentle truth. Communication is not something we do. It is something we share. This is the end of section 4 of Today English podcast. You are walking the same path as Leo. You are learning to listen, to feel, to connect. When you are ready, we will continue to section 5, where Leo faces a new challenge, one that tests not only his communication, but also his inner strength, honesty, and courage. Now, in this section, Leo faces a challenge that does not come from outside, not from a meeting, not from coworkers, not from strangers, but from within himself. And sometimes, the hardest conversations we ever have are the ones we have with our own heart. So again, take a slow breath, relax your shoulders, and listen as if this whole story is happening in a soft, warm light around you. Let the words flow through you like peaceful waves. Let your mind and heart become calm. Because this section is about something deep, discovering your true voice. The day after Leo helped Emma during her difficult moment, something changed inside him. He woke up feeling clearer, softer, stronger. For the first time in a long time, he felt like someone who could make a difference in someone else's life simply by being present. And that feeling surprised him. It surprised him because he never thought of himself as someone strong, someone confident, someone who could help others communicate or feel understood. But maybe strength does not always look loud. Maybe strength can be quiet, gentle, warm. And maybe true communication does not require perfect grammar or fast words. Maybe it requires honesty, patience, presence, and heart. As Leo walked to work that morning, the sun finally broke through the gray clouds. A soft golden light touched the streets, making everything look fresh again. Leo felt hopeful. He felt ready. But as he reached the office and opened his email, he saw something that made his stomach tighten. The manager had sent a company-wide message: new presentation on Friday. All team members must prepare a short report on their part of the project. Leo froze. A presentation? Speaking again? But this time, not in a small meeting. This time, everyone would be watching. Everyone would see him. Everyone would hear him. The small flame of confidence inside him began to shake. His hands felt cold. His heart felt heavy. He whispered to himself, "Not again. I'm not ready." And yet, a small voice inside him, the voice that had grown since meeting the woman in the cafe, said softly, "You are more ready than you think." He didn't know which voice was true. Fear or truth. Doubt or presence. The whole morning felt slow. Leo tried to work, but his mind kept returning to the presentation. Old memories returned too. Memories of school days when he had to speak in front of the class and his voice shook so much that some students giggled quietly. Memories of times he tried to say something important, but the words came out wrong. Memories of moments he avoided because speaking felt too heavy. The fear felt real, strong, familiar. But he also remembered something else: the woman's words. When you speak from fear, you hide. When you speak from presence, you shine. He wanted to shine, not in a big, dramatic way, but in a simple, honest way. He wanted to communicate not to impress people, but to express something real. Still, the fear was strong. During lunch, Leo sat alone this time. He felt the need to think deeply. Emma noticed and walked over. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. Leo looked up and hesitated. Then he said, "We have the presentation on Friday." Emma nodded. "Yes, I saw it." He looked down at his hands and continued, "I'm nervous." Emma sat beside him. "I understand," she said. "Presentations are hard for many people." Leo took a slow breath and said, "I'm afraid my voice will shake. I'm afraid I will forget the words. I'm afraid everyone will see my fear." Emma listened carefully. Then she said softly, "Leo, fear doesn't mean you can't do it. Fear means you care. And caring is not a weakness. It's a strength." Her words were warm, simple, true. Leo felt a small calmness inside him. Emma continued, "You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Speak slowly. Breathe. Be honest. That's enough." Leo nodded. He knew she was right. He knew fear was not the enemy. But he still felt its weight. When he returned to his desk, he decided something important. He would prepare, not with fear, but with presence. He took out his notebook and wrote the main points he needed to talk about. Then he practiced speaking them softly, slowly, clearly. Not fast. Not loud. Just natural. He reminded himself that communication is not a performance. It is a conversation. Even when you speak to a group, you are simply sharing something you understand. He practiced after work too. At home, he stood in front of the mirror and spoke. His voice shook a little at first, but he didn't stop. He breathed. He slowed down. He tried again. And each time, he grew a little more comfortable, a little more grounded, a little more present. On Thursday night, the night before the presentation, Leo sat at his desk with a small piece of paper from the cafe woman. He read it again and again. When you speak from fear, you hide. When you speak from presence, you shine. He closed his eyes. He took 3 slow breaths. And he whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I will speak from presence." But even as he said it, the fear still lived inside him. He wondered, can I be present and afraid at the same time? And then something surprising happened. He realized the answer was yes. Presence does not mean the fear goes away. Presence means you see the fear, you accept it, and you speak anyway. With truth. With heart. With softness. Friday morning arrived. Leo woke up early, too early. The sky was barely awake. He dressed slowly, carefully. His hands trembled a little as he buttoned his shirt. The walk to work felt long. Every sound felt louder. Every step felt heavier. When he reached the office, he saw his coworkers preparing too. Some looked confident. Some looked tired. Some looked nervous, just like him. Emma smiled at him gently. "You'll be okay," she whispered. Leo nodded, but said nothing. Inside, his heart was shaking. The presentations began after lunch. Everyone gathered in the large meeting room. Leo sat near the back, waiting for his name to be called. One by one, people walked to the front and spoke. Some talked quickly. Some talked clearly. Some used jokes. Some spoke so fast Leo could barely follow. But something interesting happened. Even the confident speakers made small mistakes. Even the loud speakers lost their place once or twice. And no one laughed. No one judged. Everyone listened. This made Leo feel a tiny bit safer. A tiny bit more human. Then it happened. The manager looked at his list and said, "Next." Leo. Leo felt a wave of heat. His legs felt heavy. But he stood up slowly. He breathed. He walked to the front. The room was quiet. All eyes were on him. His heart beat fast, too fast. His hands felt cold. His voice felt far away. He placed his notes on the table, looked at them, then looked at the people in front of him. And he remembered the woman's words, "Before you speak, breathe." So he breathed. Once. Twice. 3 times. The room stayed quiet. No one rushed him. No one pushed him. And slowly, something inside him softened. He began speaking. "Hello, everyone." His voice was quiet, but steady. "Today, I want to share my part of the project." He paused. He breathed. He spoke again. "I focused on the visual design. And I want to explain why space and quiet areas are important." Another pause. He looked at the design on the screen. He continued, "When there is too much, too many colors, too many shapes, too many messages, the eyes feel tired. The mind feels confused." He felt his voice warming up. He felt his fear becoming smaller. But when the design has space, people feel calm, clear, and focused. He looked at the team. People were listening. Really listening. Their eyes were soft. Their expressions open. He felt something powerful, connection. So, I tried to make the design cleaner. Softer. More simple. He paused again and added gently, I hope you can feel the difference. When he finished, the room stayed silent for a second. Leo's heart dropped until he heard something. Applause. Soft, real applause. People smiled at him. Emma smiled the biggest. The manager nodded with respect and said, Thank you, Leo. That was clear and thoughtful. Leo felt something warm rise inside him, not pride, exactly, but relief. Hope. Gratitude. His hands were still shaking a little, but his heart felt steady. He returned to his seat slowly. When he sat down, Emma leaned close and whispered, You did amazing. Leo shook his head gently and said, I was scared. Emma smiled. Everyone is scared, she said. But you didn't let fear take your voice. You spoke with heart. That's real communication. Later, as he walked home under the soft evening sky, Leo felt lighter than he had felt in years. He realized something beautiful. He had found his voice, not a perfect voice, not a loud voice, but a true voice. A voice that speaks slowly, honestly, gently. A voice that comes from presence, not fear. A voice that connects. And he understood that this voice had always been inside him. It was just waiting for space, waiting for courage, waiting for the right moment to come alive. When he entered his apartment, he sat down, opened his notebook, and wrote the most important sentence of his journey. Today, I found my true voice. He looked at the words, smiled softly, and closed the notebook. Because he knew the journey was far from over. But he also knew that he was no longer afraid of the path. He was walking it with presence, with awareness, with heart. This is the end of Section 5 of Today English Podcast. When you are ready, we will continue to the final section, Section 6, where Leo returns to the cafe, meets someone familiar, and finally understands the full meaning of communication, connection, and speaking with confidence. You have walked with Leo through fear, presence, connection, courage, and transformation, and now the story returns to where it began, the little cafe, the place where Leo first met the woman who changed the direction of his life. So again, relax your shoulders, breathe softly, and listen as if you are watching a beautiful sunrise, slow and warm, shining quietly into your heart. This final chapter is about understanding, about closure, and about the gentle truth that communication is a lifelong path. On the Monday after Leo's presentation, he woke up with a peaceful joy inside him, a joy that felt new but also familiar, like something he had been waiting for. The presentation had gone better than he ever imagined. He had spoken slowly, honestly, gently. He had shared his thoughts. And people had listened. He didn't hide. He didn't run. He didn't let fear control him. And because of that, he discovered his true voice, a quiet, warm, human voice. And this morning, as he walked through the city, he realized something beautiful. Communication was no longer something he feared. It was something he wanted to understand more. He wanted to grow. He wanted to learn. He wanted to become someone who could connect with others, help others, and be present in any moment. But there was one thing he still wanted to do, something his heart had been whispering to him every night. He wanted to see the woman from the cafe again. He wanted to thank her. He wanted to tell her that her words changed his life. So he decided to return to the cafe where it all began. The sky was soft and blue as he walked. Birds moved quietly through the air, and the morning wind felt gentle against his face. When he reached the cafe door, he paused. It felt strange to come back, like returning to the beginning of a story after everything had changed. He opened the door slowly and stepped inside. The cafe looked exactly the same: warm lights, soft music, the smell of fresh bread, people talking quietly at their tables. But Leo was not the same. He had changed. He had grown. He walked toward the table by the window where he had sat before. the same table where the woman had first spoken to him. He sat down and ordered a tea, then looked around the room, searching for her. Was she here today? Was she somewhere in the corner, writing in her notebook? He felt a small excitement, a hope, then a disappointment. He didn't see her. Maybe she wasn't here. Maybe he would never see her again. But even that felt okay somehow, because her lesson was already inside him. But then, just as he lifted his tea to take a sip, a familiar voice said gently, "You came back." Leo looked up, and there she was, the woman with kind eyes, soft gray hair, and the warm smile that he would never forget. She stood beside his table as if she had been waiting for him. Leo felt a wave of emotion, a mix of surprise and gratitude. He stood up quickly and smiled. "Hello," he said softly. I hope to see you." The woman nodded, as if she understood without him needing to explain. "May I sit?" she asked. Leo nodded, and she sat across from him, just like the first time. For a moment, they were both quiet. The cafe felt peaceful around them, like time had slowed down just for this moment. Finally, Leo spoke. His voice was calm, warm, steady. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "Your words, they helped me. They changed something inside me." The woman folded her hands lightly and listened. Leo continued, "I learned to listen. I learned to be present. I learned to breathe before I speak. I learned to communicate, not with fear, but with heart." The woman smiled softly, a smile full of quiet pride. "You learned all that on your own," she said. "I only gave you a small push. The rest was your own courage." Leo felt a warmth in his chest. "I had a presentation," he said, "and I was afraid. But I spoke slowly. I spoke with presence. And people listened. It felt beautiful." The woman nodded gently. "Because it was your true voice," she said. "Not a voice of fear. Not a voice of pressure. Your real voice." Leo breathed softly. "I never knew I had one," he said. "Your voice was always there," she answered. "Most people only speak with the voice of their fear because they never slow down long enough to hear their true self." Her words touched Leo deeply. He thought about all the years he hid, all the moments he stayed quiet, all the times he thought he wasn't enough. And now, looking back, he understood something important. His real voice had always been waiting for him. Waiting for silence, waiting for presence, waiting for courage. The woman opened her notebook, the same small notebook she carried the first time they met. She turned to a new page and wrote something gently. Leo watched her with curiosity. When she finished, she tore the page out and handed it to him once more. "This," she said softly, "is the next step." Leo took the paper slowly. His hands felt warm. He looked down and read the words, "Your voice is not found in speaking loudly. Your voice is found in speaking honestly." Leo read it twice, then 3 times. The sentence landed inside him like a seed. He whispered the words to himself, feeling their truth. "Honesty," he said quietly. The woman nodded. "Yes. Honesty is the heart of communication. When you speak honestly, people feel safe with you. They feel connected to you. They trust you. And they listen, not because you speak perfectly, but because you speak with truth." Leo let the words settle gently in his heart. He looked up at her and asked, "But how do I keep this? How do I continue to communicate with presence and honesty?" The woman took a slow breath and answered, "By staying aware. By listening more than you speak. By understanding before you respond. By slowing down when you feel afraid. And by remembering that communication is not something you finish learning. It is something you grow your whole life." Leo nodded slowly. That made sense. Communication wasn't a skill you learned once. It was a journey, a practice, a way of living. Then the woman asked something unexpected. "Leo, tell me, what do you want most in your communication?" Leo thought for a moment. He looked out the window at the people walking by, at the sunrise touching the street in soft gold. Then he said, slowly and honestly, I want to connect. I want people to understand me. And I want to understand them. I don't want fear to control my words anymore. The woman smiled. Then you already have everything you need, she said. Because connection begins with intention. When your intention is honest, your communication has power. Leo breathed softly. He felt deeply seen, deeply understood. For a while, they talked about small things: work, life, learning, the world. Leo noticed something beautiful. Speaking with her felt easy now. He didn't feel nervous. He didn't feel afraid of making mistakes. He didn't feel pressure to be perfect. He was just present. Real. Simple. And she listened to him with the same presence she had shown on the first day. When their conversation finally came to a quiet pause, the woman closed her notebook and said, Leo, I want to tell you something important. She leaned forward a little and continued softly, you were never bad at communication. You were only scared. And fear is not who you are. It is only a shadow. When you walk with presence, the shadow becomes small. And your true voice becomes bright. Leo felt his eyes grow warm. Her words touched something deep inside him, a part of him that had been quiet for many years. A part that finally felt free. The woman stood up slowly. I must go now, she said, just as she did the first time. Leo stood too. Will I see you again? He asked. She smiled gently, her eyes kind and peaceful. Maybe, she said. But even if you don't, the lessons are already inside you. She placed her hand lightly on his shoulder and added, communication is not about words. It is about presence. And you have learned presence. With that, she walked toward the door. Leo watched her, feeling grateful, calm, and full of warmth. Just before she stepped outside, she turned and said one last thing. Keep listening, Leo. Keep speaking with heart. And your voice will always guide you. Then she left, and the cafe felt quiet again, but not empty. It felt full of meaning, full of gentle truth, full of calm. Leo sat down again and looked at the small piece of paper in his hand. Your voice is not found in speaking loudly. Your voice is found in speaking honestly. He folded it gently and placed it in his wallet, close to his heart. He knew he would carry it for a long time, maybe forever. When he finished his tea, he stood up, paid his bill, and walked outside. The sun was higher now, warm and bright. The city felt alive, and so did Leo. He walked slowly, breathing softly, noticing the world around him, the sound of footsteps, the laughter of children, the wind moving through the trees, the quiet hum of life. And he realized something beautiful. Communication was not only about talking to people. It was about being alive in the world, being aware, being open, being present. Communication was everywhere, in silence, in listening, in understanding, in kindness, in calmness, in honesty. As he walked home, he whispered to himself, I am learning. I am growing. I am present. And with every step, he felt more connected to life. And just like that, the journey continued, not finished, not complete, but open, wide, and full of possibilities. Because communication is not a destination. It is a path. And Leo was walking that path with a quiet strength he never knew he had. And now, dear listener, as you finish this long story, you are walking the same path. You are listening to English with presence. You are learning to communicate slowly, clearly, honestly. You are growing in every moment you spend with these words. And your voice, your true voice, is already inside you. You only need space, patience, and presence to let it shine. Thank you for listening to this full story on Today English podcast. We hope this journey helped you feel calm, confident, and connected. Remember, breathe before you speak, Listen before you answer and always speak with heart. And whenever you need a warm, gentle place to practice English, we are here for you.